You didn't rise through the palace ranks. You climbed over bodies no one dared to count. Welcome back to Brutal History for Sleep, where every bedtime story ends with someone missing from the night before. If this helps you drift off darker, slower, and strangely satisfied, go ahead and like, subscribe, and tell us, where in the world are you watching from, and what hour does murder usually whisper to you? Thanks for helping this quiet little channel grow. Tonight, you cradle a prince's grief, turn a queen into your weapon, and watch a god king die without ever touching him. The scribes will blame the foreigners. You'll know better. Close your eyes. The room around you is still. Sheets tucked, limbs heavy, nothing left to do but breathe. You're safe, you're sinking, and the silence feels clean. My voice finds you here right at the edge and draws you gently back to halls that smell of myrrh and old stone, where sandals whisper on polished floors and every smile is sharpened. You walk slowly, eyes downcast, just another servant with ink on your fingers and blood in your thoughts. The queen is waiting, the feast is near, and somewhere in the palace, a king begins his final night. You've been counting flies again. 17 dead ones stuck to the honeypot in the harem scribe's chamber, which passes for entertainment when you're a mid-ranking bureaucrat in the palace of Ramesses III, Lord of the Two Lands, living god and professional ignorer of actual problems. Outside, the summer floods have failed for the second year running, but inside these walls the greatest crisis remains whether the pharaoh's wig sits at the proper angle for receiving Nubian ambassadors. Another petition about grain distribution? The chief scribe doesn't bother looking up from his papyrus. File it with the others. The others. A pile tall enough to build a small pyramid, each scroll a testament to empty bellies and emptier promises. You add your petition to the monument of indifference, wondering if the afterlife has a special punishment for bureaucrats who die of irony poisoning. Your sister's fever started 3 days ago. Marsh fever, the physicians call it, as if naming it makes them sound less useless. The cure is simple: honey, willow bark, and proper rest. The ingredients exist in abundance in the royal stores, guarded more carefully than the pharaoh's own tomb preparations. You've filed the requisition in triplicate, following every Byzantine rule of palace protocol. Meanwhile, your sister burns like a reed torch, while the royal physician tends to Ramses's ingrown toenail. Nothing says divine mandate quite like a god king who needs help with his pedicure, you mutter, earning a sharp look from the chief scribe. The irony tastes worse than the Nile water during drought season. Your family serves in the palace of the wealthiest nation on earth, yet your sister might die for want of tree bark that grows wild along every irrigation canal. Such is the mathematics of divinity. One pharaoh's toe equals approximately 37 common lives, 43 during harvest season. You slip away during the afternoon rest, when the palace dozed under the weight of beer and heat. The servants' quarters crouch like beggars at the feet of the towering royal apartments, close enough to serve, but far enough to remain invisible. The distance measures precisely one dying sister. She lies on a reed mat, her 12-year-old face flushed with fever dreams. Your mother presses a damp cloth to her forehead, Nile water, because the clean well water is reserved for those whose bloodlines trace back to gods rather than farmers. The physician, your mother asks without hope. Still attending to divine feet, you reply. Apparently the fate of Egypt hangs on the pharaoh's ability to wear sandals comfortably. Your sister's breathing sounds like wind through broken reeds. Tomorrow, you think. Tomorrow the physician will finish with the royal extremities. Tomorrow the requisition will be approved. Tomorrow multiplies, like lotus blossoms on still water, beautiful and useless. You return to find the palace in uproar. 3 bakers kneel in the courtyard, faces pressed to hot stone. Their crime: the bread for the pharaoh's morning meal emerged slightly darker than preferred. Ramses himself emerges from his chambers, the divine toenail presumably healed enough to allow walking. Let all who serve know the price of imperfection, he declares, voice carrying the weight of 30 years of unchallenged rule. The gods demand excellence. The executions are swift, a mercy by palace standards. You watch the bodies dragged away, calculating 3 lives for burnt crust, your sister for an ingrown nail, The mathematics of divinity grows ever more creative. The royal physician stumbles past, face grey as old papyrus. Blood spatters his white linen, not his own, but wearing it suits him poorly. His hands shake like an old man's, though he's barely past 40 floods. You follow, curious about what breaks a man who daily holds life and death in his medicine bag. He weaves through the palace complex like a drunk, though you smell no beer on him. Past the chapel of Ptah, through the gardens where lotus blooms mock the drought outside, down corridors that grow progressively darker and less travelled. You recognise the path. It leads to the old burial complex, where previous dynasties' nobles rest in varying states of architectural collapse. The physician stops at a sealed doorway marked with the cartouche of Amenhotep, some long-dead healer from a more civilized age. He produces bronze tools from his bag, the same instruments that failed to save countless patients, but excel at less medical tasks. The seal breaks with a sound like snapping bones. You should announce yourself, you should report this, you should do many things that proper palace servants do. Instead, you watch him disappear into the tomb's mouth, then follow on feet, trained by years of navigating palace politics. The tomb smells of centuries and failed ambition. Your oil lamp throws dancing shadows on walls covered in medical texts, the collected wisdom of ages, locked away from those who need it most. The physician crouches near a painted sarcophagus, frantically copying papyri by lamplight. Knowledge hoarding must be exhausting, you observe. He spins, dropping the papyrus. His face cycles through fear, rage, and finally, resignation. I suppose you'll report this. Depends. What's the penalty for robbing the wisdom of the dead? Impalement, crocodiles, or something creative involving sacred beetles? All three, knowing our beloved Pharaoh. He laughs bitterly. Do you know what's in these texts? Treatments for marsh fever that actually work. Surgical procedures that don't kill more than they cure. Medicine that might have saved those bakers if applied to heads instead of bread. Fascinating. Speaking of marsh fever, the physician's hands are steadier now, as if confession brings its own cure. Your sister. I know, I've known for days. But the God King's toe, he gestures helplessly. The living God comes first, always, even when he's the disease-killing Egypt. You help him gather the papyri, each scroll a small treason. What if I told you I could forget what I saw here? That your secret could remain as buried as these texts should be? Hope flickers in his eyes like a new lamp. What would you want? Nothing unreasonable, medical knowledge perhaps. The kind that helps with sudden illnesses, or sudden departures from this life. You smile pleasantly. After all, someone should benefit from poor Amenhotep's wisdom. He stares at you, physician enough to diagnose the darkness growing behind your clerk's facade. You're thinking of... I'm thinking of my sister, dying for want of willow bark. I'm thinking of 3 bakers, dead for the sin of imperfect crust. I'm thinking the mathematics of divinity could use some recalculation. The gods are remarkably quiet when children die of preventable diseases, rather like they're busy with more important matters. Toenails, perhaps. You help him reseal the tomb, 2 conspirators born from bureaucracy and bitter irony. As you part ways, he presses a small bundle into your hands. Willow bark, honey, and lotus extract. For your sister, he says. And we'll speak again. About mathematics. You return to find Queen T in the corridor outside your chamber, tears streaming down her face. This is unusual. Queens typically cry in private, where their divinity won't be diluted by human emotion. Your Majesty? You bow precisely the correct depth. Deeper risks mockery. Shallower risks offence. I've announced the succession, she whispers. My son, my Pentawa, passed over for his half-brother, as if his blood is less royal for coming from my womb instead of that primary wife. You recognize opportunity when it knocks, especially when it arrives wearing royal linen and dripping with righteous fury. The Pharaoh's wisdom is mysterious, Your Majesty. His wisdom is buying loyalty with my son's birthright. She looks at you with eyes that calculate like an abacus. You're the scribe who files the grain petitions, the ones about people starving while temple storehouses overflow. I file many things, Your Majesty. Memory is such a fleeting gift. She almost smiles. As fleeting as justice in this palace. Walk with me. You walk. Two shadows threading through pools of lamplight. She speaks of Pentawa's virtues, of divine bloodlines diluted by politics, of a throne that should pass to worth rather than favoritism. You listen with the patience of someone who spent 3 years filing ignored petitions. What if the gods themselves were to judge Ramesses unworthy? You finally ask, the question hanging between you like incense smoke. She stops walking. In the flickering light, her face transforms, queen to conspirator in the space between heartbeats. The gods' judgment can be interpreted many ways. Indeed, and their instruments are often surprisingly human-shaped. You speak dangerous words for a scribe. Your Majesty speaks dangerous tears for a queen. Perhaps we both need better hobbies. This time she does smile, sharp as a bronze blade. Perhaps we do. Visit me tomorrow, after the morning offerings. Bring your talent for creative mathematics. You bow again, precisely correct, and return to your chamber where your sister sleeps peacefully, the physician's medicine already cooling her fever. You sit beside her, planning equations that balance 3 dead bakers against 1 living god, calculating how much divine blood it takes to wash away mortal suffering. Tomorrow, you'll visit the Queen. Tomorrow, you'll explore the mathematics of justice. Tomorrow, the gods will begin their audit of Ramesses III's reign. At night, you count dead flies in honeypots and wonder if the afterlife keeps better books than the palace scribes. 17 flies, 3 bakers, 1 sister, and a god-king with perfect toenails. The arithmetic of revolution always starts with small numbers. The temple of Wadjet squats on the unfashionable side of Memphis, like a grandmother who refuses to die just to spite her relatives. While the grand temples of Ptah and Ra compete for skyline dominance with their gold-capped obelisks, think ancient skyscrapers, Wadjet's humble mud-brick structure concerns itself with more practical matters, namely housing enough venomous snakes to kill half the nobility if they ever developed political opinions. You arrive at dawn, when the cobras are sluggish and the priests are sluggisher. Your offering basket contains the standard bribes: bread, beer, and a small silver amulet that cost 3 weeks of scribal wages. The gods, it seems, have developed expensive tastes since the Old Kingdom. Nothing says divine communion quite like commercialized spirituality. "The blessings of the serpent mother upon you," intones the door priest, eyeing your basket with the practiced gaze of a merchant. "What brings you to our humble temple?" "Dreams," you reply, which isn't entirely false. You've been dreaming of snakes lately, specifically their venom glands and how they might interact with certain digestive systems. "I seek wisdom about serpents." The priest brightens considerably. Most pilgrims want generic blessings or fertility charms. Actual interest in snake theology is rarer than honest tax collectors. "Brother Amenemheb tends our sacred cobras. You'll find him in the inner courtyard." The inner courtyard reeks of mouse droppings and mysticism. Stone enclosures line the walls, each housing specimens of Egypt's most theologically significant reptiles. Brother Amenheb crouches beside one enclosure, a man so thin he could hide behind a was scepter. He's cooing to a cobra like it's a beloved cat rather than a mobile death dispensary. Magnificent, aren't they? He doesn't look up. This beauty's shedding schedule aligns perfectly with the lunar calendar. The goddess speaks through synchronized molting. Fascinating, you lie smoothly. I've always wondered about the divine nature of venom. Purely theological interest, of course. He turns, revealing a face scarred by what appears to be numerous theological discussions with fanged participants. His eyes gleam with the fervour of the professionally obsessed. "Oh, a true seeker! Come, come, let me show you the goddess's mysteries." Over the next hour you receive an education that no scribe school would ever sanction. Amenemheb explains venom extraction with the enthusiasm of a chef discussing recipes. Fresh cobra venom, he demonstrates, can be milked using a piece of papyrus stretched over a water bowl. The snake strikes. Fangs pierce the papyrus, and liquid death drips into the container below. "Now here's the divine paradox," he continues, warming to his subject like a professor with a captive audience. "The venom loses potency when exposed to air, but And this is Wadjet's own wisdom. When dried and mixed with acidic substances, it stabilizes. Fig juice, pomegranate wine, even citrus oils. The goddess provides both poison and preservation. You memorize every word while maintaining an expression of scholarly interest rather than practical application. How quickly does it fulfill its divine purpose? Depends on the dose and delivery. A full strike, minutes, but diluted, say mixed in food or drink, could take hours. The victim might feel only mild stomach upset before their breathing achieves transcendence. The goddess is subtle. Exactly. Unlike those clumsy scorpion stings or obvious poisonings, a cobra's gift can look like anything: food poisoning, heart failure, even divine judgment. He beams with pride. The goddess doesn't leave calling cards. You spend another hour discussing snake husbandry, proper venom storage, clay vessels sealed with wax kept cool, and the theological implications of death by neurotoxin. Amenemheb is so starved for intelligent conversation that he barely notices your questions growing increasingly specific. As you prepare to leave, he presses a small amulet into your hand. For a fellow seeker, may Wadjet's wisdom guide your studies. The amulet is a cobra wrapped around an ankh, life and death in one convenient package. You thank him profusely and promise to return, which isn't entirely a lie. You will need venom eventually, and Amenemheb's loneliness makes him more reliable than any bought loyalty. Your next stop requires less theology and more theatre. The deputy overseer of royal food tasters, a pompous ass named Nebamun, maintains a house near the palace quarter. His wife, Lady Merit, maintains a legendary temper and an unfortunate trust in household servants. You've been cultivating her maid for weeks, with small kindnesses and smaller bribes. The plan unfolds with the precision of a temple ritual. You pass the maid a parcel containing evidence, a love amulet inscribed with Nebamun's name and that of a certain priestess of Isis, known for her flexible interpretation of celibacy vows. The amulet is genuine, purchased from the same temple where said priestess conducts her varied ministries. The inscription is your own work, but copying Nebamun's handwriting after years of filing his pompous reports proves easier than forging a laundry list. The maid, bless her mercenary heart, plants the evidence exactly where Lady Merit will find it during her daily inspection of household accounts. You're 3 streets away when the screaming starts, audible even over the normal chaos of Memphis traffic. By evening, the scandal has spread through the palace faster than dysentery through the foreign quarter. Nebamun, caught between his wife's fury and the high priest's threats of sacrilege charges, chooses the time-honored solution of powerful men everywhere. He flees under cover of darkness, leaving his position conveniently vacant just as the Opet festival approaches. The festival means elaborate feasts, which means increased food security, which means opportunities. Your third seed requires more subtle cultivation. The palace archives sprawl through 3 basement levels like the architectural equivalent of irritable bowel syndrome, cramped, uncomfortable, and producing nothing but shit. Papyrus scrolls lie in haphazard piles, some dating back to the pyramid builders, others still wet with yesterday's ink. The current organization system appears to be wherever it lands when thrown. You approach the master archivist with a proposal that would make a pyramid scheme architect weep with envy. Divine Master, you begin, using his full title because petty officials gorge on honorifics like crocodiles on slow swimmers. I've noticed inefficiencies in our filing system. Inefficiencies? He bristles like a cat dunked in the Nile. My system has served the palace for 20 years. Of course. But imagine if we could reduce retrieval time by half. Think of the glory, the master archivist who revolutionized record-keeping. They might even name a scroll case after you. His eyes glaze with visions of bureaucratic immortality. Within an hour, you have permission to reorganize the archives, with full access to every document from grain receipts to succession scrolls. It's like being handed the keys to the kingdom, if the kingdom were made entirely of paper and smelled faintly of mouse urine. You begin with genuine organization, enough to show progress and maintain cover. But certain scrolls find their way into special collections that only you can access. Documents about succession precedents, royal seal procedures, and most importantly, the templates used for official decrees. A few practice forgeries on scrap papyrus, and soon you can replicate royal secretary handwriting better than the secretaries themselves. Plant 3 takes root among the dusty scrolls, waiting to bloom into whatever documentary evidence your flowering conspiracy might require. Your close call arrives with the suddenness of summer floods and considerably less warning. You're returning from the archives late one evening, hands still dusty with papyrus fragments, when footsteps echo behind you. The palace corridors at night are like a minotaur's maze, if minotaurs were replaced by bored guards and treasonous thoughts. You there, scribe. High Priest Amenhotep emerges from shadow like divine judgment with a beer belly. His presence here, in this forgotten corridor leading to the sealed medical archives, is as unexpected as finding a crocodile in your bed. Theoretically possible, but practically problematic. Your Holiness, you bow, mind racing faster than a chariot fleeing Syrian archers. I was just... What brings you to this section after dark? His eyes narrow with the suspicion of someone who's caught enough conspirators to recognize the smell of guilt sweat. Divine inspiration strikes with the force of a monument falling on tourists. You pull a piece of linen from your satchel, planted there weeks ago for emergencies, and hold it up with trembling hands that don't require acting. Tomb robbers, Your Holiness. I heard sounds, scraping, metal on stone. I came to investigate, found this caught on a doorway. The linen is authentically aged, stolen from a laundry shipment. I was just going to report to the guard captain. Amenhotep snatches the cloth, examining it with the expertise of someone who's overseen enough mummy wrappings to start a textile business. This is burial linen, 3rd Dynasty weave. The medical archives, you whisper with calculated horror. The seal of Amenhotep the physician. What if they're after the sacred healing texts? It's a gamble that would make professional dice players weep. If he checks the seal now and finds it intact, you're dead. If he's already discovered the physician's break-in, you're deader. But you're betting on bureaucratic priorities, the fear of scandal outweighing immediate investigation. The high priest's face purples like an overripe fig. Guards! Guards! He turns to you, suddenly paternal. Well done, young scribe. Your vigilance may have saved irreplaceable wisdom. I'll have the archive sealed and guarded immediately. I live to serve, Your Holiness. Indeed. What's your name? I'll ensure your diligence is rewarded. You give a false name, that of a real scribe who conveniently died of flux last week, but hasn't been officially removed from palace rolls. The high priest hurries off to organize security for Horsefleg's stables, leaving you weak-kneed but alive. As you finally reach your quarters, you allow yourself one moment of trembling relief before the familiar mask of mild-mannered bureaucracy settles back into place. Tomorrow you'll return to filing grain petitions and copying tax scrolls, but tonight you've successfully planted seeds that will grow into a garden of consequence. Your venom source is cultivated, the food security compromised, and the archives await your creative editing. Queen Tia's tears have watered the ground for revolution, and somewhere in his royal chambers, Ramesses III sleeps peacefully, his divine toenails perfectly pedicured, blissfully unaware that his divinity is being audited by someone who failed beginning hieroglyphics twice. The gods, as always, remain conspicuously silent on the matter. Their accounting department must be even worse than the palace archives. Lucky for you, you're about to balance their books with blood, red ink. 3 seeds planted, 1 close call survived, and a conspiracy that's growing faster than lotus flowers in flood season. At this rate, you'll either save Egypt or destroy it by the next full moon. Given the current state of things, you're not entirely sure which outcome would be worse. The palace scribe Kamwaset possesses the most dangerous quality in a bureaucracy: competence. While other scribes doze through their duties like cats in sunbeams, he notices things, patterns, discrepancies, the kind of details that transform from minor annoyances into major problems when you're orchestrating regicide. His wife died last year during childbirth, taking the baby with her. Since then, he's channeled his grief into obsessive work, arriving before dawn and leaving after the last lamp is extinguished. Grief makes some men drunk. It made Kamwaset inconveniently observant. You begin with research, because psychological warfare requires reconnaissance as surely as military campaigns require maps. His wife, Nefertiti, not the famous one. Egypt recycles names like a frugal housewife recycles linen. was a poetess of minor renown. Her verses about love and loss circulated among the literate classes, sweet enough to cause tooth decay if consumed in large quantities. More importantly, Wasset keeps her poems in his work satchel, reading them during quiet moments like a widower picking at scabs. He's memorized every line, every stylistic quirk, every favourite metaphor about lotus blossoms representing eternal love. The man grieves in iambic pentameter. Forging her handwriting proves easier than expected. Palace scribes copy text constantly. Adapting your hand to match another's is like a musician changing keys. You practice on scrap papyrus until her distinctive loops and flourishes flow naturally from your reed pen. The poems themselves require more creativity. They need to sound like her work while containing enough personal details to gut-punch Wasset into madness. You compose verses about shared memories you've gleaned from his unguarded conversations. Their first meeting at a festival of Hathor, the scar on his left hand from their kitchen knife, the way he snored like a hippo with sinus problems. My beloved, why do you not hear me calling from the western shore? The ferry grows impatient, but I cannot cross until you answer. Poetry as psychological weapon. If the pen is mightier than the sword, then forged love poems are assassination attempts on sanity. You plant the first poem in his papyrus case during the morning prayer confusion, when everyone's either prostrating or pretending to. He discovers it that afternoon. The colour drains from his face like water from a broken jar. He reads it 17 times. You count. Lips moving silently, hands trembling like palm fronds in a sandstorm. The second poem appears under his sleeping mat 3 days later. The gods are cruel to separate us by so thin a veil. I see you but cannot touch, speak but cannot be heard. Come to me, beloved, the western shore is lonely without your snoring. He starts jumping at shadows, interrogating servants about who's been in his room. His work suffers. Tax calculations off by whole dynasties, royal correspondence filed in the wrong centuries. Other scribes begin avoiding him like he's contracted something contagious. In a way, he has. Madness spreads through proximity to the impossible. Meanwhile, your relationship with the royal physician deepens like an infected wound. He provides you with his promised gifts. Lotus extract concentrated enough to fell an elephant, dried scorpion venom that could turn a feast into a funeral, and most intriguingly, a selection of exotic poisons, acquired through what he calls medical research and what the law calls crimes against Ma'at. This one's from Nubia, he explains, holding up a vial of brownish powder. Made from tree frogs, causes paralysis that looks exactly like a stroke. This blue one? Sea snakes from the Red Sea trade routes. And this? He produces a clay jar sealed with enough wax to waterproof a boat. Concentrated cobra venom, dried and mixed with natron salt, stable for years, activates in stomach acid, untraceable after death because it breaks down into components naturally found in the body. You're remarkably well supplied for a healer. Healing and harming are two sides of the same amulet. The only difference is dosage and intent. He pauses, studying you with the clinical detachment of someone who's dissected both bodies and motivations. You're planning something specific, aren't you? Not just theoretical regicide, but practical application. Would it matter if I were? Only in terms of dosage calculations. A fat pharaoh requires more poison than a thin priest. Basic mathematics. You appreciate his pragmatism. Moral flexibility lubricates conspiracy better than any oil. He shows you how to handle the substances safely. Cloth gloves soaked in vinegar, ceramic tools rather than metal, storage in containers marked with healing herbs to discourage investigation. Your friend at the Temple of Wajed proves equally generous. Brother Amenheb has grown so attached to your theological discussions that he practically glows when you arrive. Today's lesson involves advanced venom extraction techniques. See how she positions herself? He handles a cobra with the casual confidence of a baker kneading dough. The goddess reveals her mysteries to those who approach with proper respect and proper tools. He demonstrates the milking process again, this time letting you try under his supervision. The cobra's fangs pierce the papyrus membrane with surprising delicacy. Drops of clear venom pool in the collection bowl like liquid moonlight. Fresh venom degrades quickly, he reminds you, but dried properly with fig juice or pomegranate wine, it becomes stable. a divine preservation, if you will. The goddess ensures her gifts endure. He gifts you a vial of preserved venom for your theological studies. You accept with gratitude that only partially performance. Good conspirators appreciate quality tools. Your close call arrives during what should have been routine poem placement. You've grown confident. 3 successful plantings have made you careless. Pride, as the pyramid builders learned, comes before catastrophic structural failure. Prince Ramesses, not the scribe royal naming conventions are lazier than summer cats, maintains chambers near the administrative wing. You need to pass through to reach the scribe's quarters. Usually, the prince is attending court or inspecting troops or doing whatever princes do to justify their expense accounts. Tonight, he's in his chambers, with insomnia and an urgent need to find a particular scroll about Syrian tribute payments. You're crouched behind a statue of Thoth, ironic given you're engaged in decidedly unwise activity, when he enters. The poem in your hand feels heavier than a pyramid block. The moon provides just enough light to turn you into a shadow among shadows, but shadows don't usually sweat this much. He searches with the frustrated efficiency of someone who knows exactly where something should be but isn't. Scrolls scatter across surfaces like dandruff from a divine scalp. He's so close you can smell his perfume. Myrrh and entitlement. A spider chooses this moment to investigate your hand. Not just any spider, but one of those hairy palace variants that look like they bench press other spiders for fun. It crawls across your knuckles with the leisurely pace of a royal procession. Every instinct screams to move, to shake, to do anything but remain frozen while an arachnid uses your hand as a highway. But movement means death, and death means failure, and failure means your sister died for nothing. So you endure. The spider reaches your wrist and apparently decides you're boring. It rappels down an invisible thread just as Prince Ramesses kicks a scroll case in frustration. The case rolls behind your statue. Time moves like honey in winter. He approaches, bends. His hand passes inches from your face, grabbing the case. For one eternal second, his eyes sweep across your hiding spot, but shadows and Thoth's carved ibis head conspire to keep you invisible. He straightens, mutters something about incompetent filing systems, the irony, and storms out. You remain frozen until your legs cramp into knots that would impress a sailor. Only when palace sounds return to normal do you dare move. The poem goes unplanted that night, but Ramesses finds it the next morning anyway, wedged into his morning bread delivery. Why do you make me wait, beloved? The ferryman grows impatient. Soon I must cross alone, and then who will warm your bed and criticize your snoring? The effect is immediate and spectacular. He bursts into the morning assembly, wild-eyed and ranting about messages from the dead. Half the court thinks he's drunk. The other half thinks he's possessed. All of them think he's lost the favor of the gods, which, in palace politics, amounts to the same thing as leprosy, but less treatable. "Seize here," he screams, waving the papyrus. "My wife, she writes to me. The dead speak through reed and ink." Guards eventually drag him away, but the damage is done. His reputation as the palace's most observant scribe is thoroughly murdered, killed by love poems and strategic madness. When he returns the next day, forcibly sobered and professionally humiliated, no one listens to his observations about unusual palace activities or suspicious behavior among the staff. You've successfully removed the biggest threat to your conspiracy by the simple expedient of driving him insane with grief. It should feel worse than it does, but then you remember 3 dead bakers and a sister who almost joined them, and find your sympathy reserves depleted. That evening, Queen Ta summons you for another of your theoretical discussions about divine judgment. Her chambers smell of lotus perfume and barely contained rage. The succession documents have been formally sealed, she informs you. My son's birthright, stolen by wax and papyrus. Documents can be unsealed or replaced. Theoretical speaking. You speak dangerous theories, scribe. Your Majesty thinks dangerous thoughts. We make a matched set, like funeral jars but less decorative. She actually laughs, a sound like bronze bells cracking. The Opet festival approaches. The god will feast while Egypt starves. Tell me, scribe who counts grain and files useless petitions, what would the gods do about such injustice? The gods, in my limited experience, do absolutely nothing with remarkable consistency. Perhaps they need mortal assistance. Theoretically, indeed. And if mortals were to assist, they would need tools. You think of cobra venom drying in clay jars, of access to sealed archives, of a physician who's traded his oath for survival. Tools can be acquired, but timing matters more than tools. Even the sharpest blade is useless if it strikes too early or too late. The Opet festival, she muses, when the palace celebrates abundance while Egypt hungries. When wine flows like the Nile in flood and vigilance drowns in it. When a god-king might feast on figs in private, as is his custom before retiring. Figs disagree with some constitutions, especially if improperly prepared. How tragic that would be. The god's will made manifest through fruit. You both understand the conversation has crossed from theoretical to practical. The mathematics of murder balance on the edge of decision. Tomorrow exists in two states. One where Ramesses continues his divine misrule. Another where the ledgers of justice balance with blood. I should go, you say. The archives need organizing. So many documents to review about succession precedents and royal seal protocols. May the gods guide your filing, scribe. Some documents deserve special handling. You leave her chambers with a conspiracy that tastes like cobra venom and sounds like forged poetry. In his quarters, Kemwaset probably reads real poems from his dead wife, trying to distinguish memory from madness. In the temple, brother Amenemheb tends his cobras with lonely devotion. In his medical chambers, the physician measures poison by the dram and conscience by the grain. All the seeds are planted, all the tools assembled, all that remains is the harvest, and Opet approaches like Judgment Day dressed in festival clothes. You return to your chamber, where your sister sleeps peacefully, alive because you blackmailed a tomb robber. Soon, a kingdom will sleep differently, because you've become something worse than a tomb robber. You're stealing a god's life while he still uses it. The accounting continues, written in venom and madness, balanced by justice, and seasoned with just enough irony to make the gods themselves laugh. If they're paying attention. Which, based on current evidence, remains doubtful. But you'll balance their books anyway. Someone has to. The art of forgery, like the art of medicine, requires steady hands and a complete absence of conscience. You've spent the past week perfecting both skills, practicing Prince Ramesses' handwriting until your fingers cramp into claws that would make a mummified pharaoh jealous. The prince, eldest son, heir apparent and walking example of why hereditary monarchy is a dice game where the house always wins, has handwriting like a drunk ibis attempting calligraphy during an earthquake. Fortunately, this makes forgery easier. No one questions terrible penmanship from a man who once signed a treaty with X because spelling his own name proved too challenging before noon beer. The documents you're creating tell a story more twisted than the Nile's delta channels. Secret correspondence with Libyan chiefs, discussing troop movements and bribe amounts. Palace guard rotations sold for gold that exists only in ink. Most damning, a half-drafted confession that begins "When I am Pharaoh" and details plans that would make Set himself suggest therapy. Each document is aged with techniques the physician taught you: vinegar and heat for old papyrus smell, strategic water damage for authenticity, even authentic wax seals courtesy of your archive reorganization. You've become a one-scribe historical revision department. Queen T watches you work with the fascination of someone watching a crocodile dissect a lawyer, horrified but unable to look away. Your talents are wasted in the grain archives, she observes. You could have been a novelist. Fiction requires imagination, Majesty. I'm merely a secretary taking dictation from possibility. You add another damning line to the prince's confession, something about redirecting temple gold to Libyan mercenaries. Besides, the best lies are mostly truth. Prince Ramesses does meet with foreign ambassadors. He does have gambling debts. He does resent his father's longevity. I'm simply connecting dots that were begging for companionship, like a matchmaker for treason. Precisely. And speaking of matches, you produce your masterwork, a letter that appears to be from a Libyan chief responding to the prince's overtures. The broken Egyptian is perfectly calculated, the promises just plausible enough. This should appear in the archive's incoming foreign correspondence section. Misfiled, of course, accidentally preserved. TA holds it to the lamplight, admiring the craftsmanship like a jeweller examining a perfect forgery of a forgery. When? After. Power vacuums are like regular vacuums, they suck in whatever's nearest. We need debris ready to be discovered by whoever investigates. You pause, adding casualty to your voice. Your son will need clean hands when he inherits. Where he inherits, she repeats, tasting the words like fine wine. The physician, he's provided what you need? Enough poison to kill a river horse, though for one divine pharaoh we'll need less. The venom is elegant, works like a sunset, slow enough to seem natural, fast enough to prevent antidotes. And the delivery method? Figs. Your intelligence about his private dining habits proved accurate. Every evening before bed, 3 perfect figs from his private garden. The food taster checks the public meals, but the pharaoh's bedtime snack? That's between him and the gods. The gods, who remain conveniently silent. Their silence is rather deafening, isn't it? Almost like they're holding their breath. She provides the final intelligence, a detailed schedule of the Opet Festival's feast arrangements, guard rotations, and, most crucially, which servants have access to the royal chambers during the celebration's chaos. Your mental architecture of murder gains its final blueprints. You're testing the poison mixture on a palace cat, an acceptable casualty. The creature was a repeat food thief when the world collapses like a poorly planned pyramid. A royal herald's voice echoes through the palace. Let all hear the divine wisdom of Ramesses, beloved of Ra. The god king declares 3 days of purification fasting before Opetet. Let no food pass divine lips until the gods themselves decree the fast complete. The cat, unaware of its reprieve, continues licking the poisoned fig paste. Within minutes, it's sleeping peacefully. Permanently. At least something goes according to plan today. Fasting, you tell the corpse, because apparently the gods have a sense of humour darker than Nubian beer. Queen T finds you disposing of the evidence, 1 dead cat wrapped in linen like the world's least impressive mummy. Her face wears the expression of someone who's bitten into bread and found half a beetle, the other half being worse than the whole. 3 days, she hisses. 3 days of purification. The festival will pass, security will tighten, and we'll have missed our opportunity like archers shooting at yesterday's targets. Unless... Your mind races through possibilities like a chariot horse that's spotted the finish line. Purification fasts can be broken by divine decree. The Oracle of Amun has that authority. The Oracle is incorruptible. The Oracle is a priest with expensive tastes and a secret collection of Syrian pornography. I've seen the customs receipts. You smile with all the warmth of a crocodile's welcome. Everyone's corruptible, Majesty. It's just a matter of finding the right currency. But corruption takes time, and time is suddenly scarcer than honest tax collectors. Worse, a new food taster arrives from Thebes the next morning. Young, eager, and competent enough to make you nostalgic for the previous incompetent. His name is Amenhotep, because Egypt has 3 names total, and rotates them like crops. And he approaches food security with the dedication of someone who's read all the cautionary tales and believed them. He implements new protocols, random food sampling, sealed containers, documented chain of custody from kitchen to royal gullet. Admirable efficiency, you comment, watching him reorganize the tasting procedures. Efficiency saves lives, he replies with the smugness of someone who's never had to choose between efficiency and eating. The old systems were laughably lax. Did you know the pharaoh's private figs weren't even tested? I've corrected that oversight. Your smile could curdle milk. How wonderfully thorough. Queen T summons you that night. Her chambers feel like a tomb decorated by an optimist. All luxury and no life. The pharaoh suspects something, she says without preamble. He's asked the Oracle of Amun to divine any threats to his divine person. The ceremony is tomorrow. Then we'll have to ensure the Oracle sees what we want seen. With what leverage? You said yourself, it takes time we don't have. Time no, but jewellery. You gesture to her elaborate collar, gold and lapis lazuli worked into patterns that could buy a small gnome. The oracle's Syrian tastes are expensive. Your jewellery is persuasive. She touches the collar, a gift from her husband in happier times, before power calcified their marriage into mutual contempt. You're asking me to bribe a divine voice with my wedding gifts. I'm suggesting we redistribute wealth from failed promises to future possibilities. Very economical. You have a gift for making treason sound like accounting. All the best crimes are just mathematics with body counts, Majesty. She removes the collar with movements that speak of practice. This isn't the first jewellery she's sacrificed for her son's future. Won't be the last, if your plans succeed. The bribery goes smoother than Nile mud. The oracle examines the jewellery with the eye of a connoisseur, running fingers over gold that could feed a village for a year. Syrian pornography is expensive. Divine integrity, it turns out, is pricier, but still within budget. The god must be appeased, he intones with freshly purchased piety. A sacred feast of figs, blessed by Amun himself, to break the purification fast. Let the pharaoh consume them in private communion with the gods, alone and undisturbed. Perfect. Except for the guards now marching toward the harem quarters with the purposeful stride of soldiers who've been promised bonuses for successful arrests. You're with Queen T when they approach, close enough to see her face cycle through fear, rage and calculation in the time it takes to blink. The vial of concentrated venom weighs heavier than pyramid stones in your hidden pocket. Majesty, the guard captain bows precisely the correct amount. Enough for respect, not enough to impede quick sword drawing. The pharaoh commands all palace residents to attend the oracle's pronouncement. Security precaution. Of course, T's voice could frost the Nile. We live to obey divine commands. As you file out with the other courtiers, your mind runs scenarios. Has the physician broken? Has Kamwasit's madness cleared enough to remember suspicious activities? Has someone noticed the reorganized archives, the missing succession documents, the forged letters waiting like patient crocodiles? The oracle's chamber fills with nervous nobility. You catalogue potential threats, escape routes, lies that might buy time. The venom vial feels like it's burning through your clothes. Should you swallow it yourself if discovered? Die before revealing conspirators? Or would that just confirm guilt? Queen Tie stands perfectly still, a statue of royal composure. Only her eyes move, finding yours across the crowd. A question passes between you. Run or stand? Fight or accept? Your slight headshake says wait, see, plan. The oracle emerges, resplendent in robes that your bribery probably funded. He raises his arms, voice echoing with practiced divinity. Amun has spoken. Let those who plot against the divine order be revealed. This is it. Your last thought is absurdly practical. You hope someone feeds your sister after your execution. The god declares, the pharaoh must break his fast with sacred figs. Alone in private communion to prove his divine nature remains pure. Any who disturb this holy meal risk the god's wrath. The relief hits like a physical blow. Around you, courtiers relax, disappointed at the lack of dramatic arrests. Just another divine pronouncement about dietary requirements. How boring. How perfect. As the crowd disperses, you catch the oracle's eye. He nods almost imperceptibly. Message received. Merchandise satisfactory. Service delivered as purchased. You're walking back to the harem with Queen Tier when she whispers, the gods have expensive tastes. Fortunately, they also have flexible ethics. Tomorrow, your husband eats alone. Make sure those figs are properly blessed. With all the reverence they deserve, she agrees. The vial of venom shifts in your pocket. Tomorrow, the Opet festival begins. Tomorrow, a god-king will feast on figs dressed for death. Tomorrow, the mathematics of justice balance with poison. Tonight, you return to your quarters, where forged documents wait in patient stacks, where a medical accomplice practices innocence, where a mad scribe sees ghosts in his soup. All the pieces positioned, all the seeds planted, all the calculations complete. except for the final sum, but that's tomorrow's mathematics. Tonight, you count dead cats and live conspirators, and find the ratio acceptable. The oracle's divine breakfast recommendations spread through the palace like gastrointestinal distress through a barracks. By noon, even the kitchen cats know that Ramses must break his fast with sacred figs, alone and undisturbed, lest the gods withdraw their favour and leave Egypt less blessed than a desert well. You spend the morning in final preparations, each detail a prayer to gods who've proven remarkably deaf, but might appreciate the gesture. The physician provides one last gift, a powerful purgative derived from croton oil, guaranteed to transform the new food taster's competence into urgent bathroom diplomacy. Slip this into his afternoon beer, he instructs, handing over a vial that looks innocent as water. He'll be too busy worshipping the waste pits to worry about figs. Your medical knowledge serves interesting purposes, physician. Medicine is like a blade. It all depends which end you're holding. He pauses, studying you with eyes that have seen too much. After tonight, we've never met. My debt dies with your target. Agreed. Though technically we're just facilitating divine judgment. The gods judge strangely these days. Through figs and bowel movements, apparently. The purgative works with medical precision. By evening, young Amenhotep the food taster is sprinting to the latrines with the dedication of an Olympic athlete, if Olympics involve different kinds of movements. His groans echo through the servants' quarters like a hymn to digestive betrayal. Marsh stomach. The physician diagnoses with a straight face that deserves its own pyramid. Severe case. He'll need complete rest and frequent evacuations. I'll inform the kitchen he's unfit for duty. One obstacle eliminated through strategic application of medical knowledge. The gods work in mysterious ways, mostly involving the lower intestine. Queen Ta provides the evening's intelligence with the efficiency of someone who's been planning this moment since her son took his first rejected breath. The pharaoh will dine publicly at the Apet feast until the 8th hour, then retire for private meditation and his traditional fig consumption. 3 figs, personally selected from his private garden that afternoon, waiting in a sealed box in his chambers. The seal, you ask? His personal cartouche, but she produces a matching seal, perfect down to the microscopic chip on the 3rd hieroglyph. A mother prepares for all her son's needs, even those he doesn't know he has. Your forethought is admirable, Majesty. Disturbing, but admirable. I've had years to plan while watching lesser sons elevated above mine. Patience ferments into interesting vintages. The palace kitchens during Opet resemble a battlefield where ingredients are casualties and chefs are generals losing their minds. Steam, smoke, and screaming create a symphony of chaos that provides perfect cover for one additional cook with specific dietary goals. You slip in during the shift change dressed in kitchen whites that hide multitudes of sins and one specific vial. The fig box sits in the pharaoh's preparation area, sealed and waiting like a virgin sacrifice, if virgins were fruit, and sacrifices involve neurotoxins. Breaking the seal takes seconds. Inside, 3 perfect figs nestle in white linen, purple skin gleaming with promise. You work quickly. The physician's gloves protect your hands as you paint each fig with concentrated venom mixed with lotus extract. The mixture absorbs instantly, leaving no trace except eventual respiratory failure. The hardest part is resealing the box. Your hands shake slightly, not from fear but from the sheer weight of murdering a god. The seal presses into warm wax, cartouche perfect, destiny packaged for delivery. You, what are you doing there? A sous chef, face red from heat and authority, bears down on you like divine judgment with a ladle. Your mind goes blank except for one thought. This is how epic conspiracies end. Not with grand battles, but with kitchen staff and awkward questions. Figs. You hold up the sealed box. For the divine feast, the head chef said, special handling, oracle's orders. The words tumble out like drunken acrobats, but Oped madness is infectious, and the sous chef has bigger problems than one confused servant. Then move. The 8th hour approaches, and tell them we need more waterfowl. The nobles are eating like locusts. You escape through clouds of roasting meat and professional panic. The box returns to its place, looking innocent as morning prayers. More innocent, considering what most people pray for. The feast proceeds with typical royal excess. Watching from the servant's position, you catalogue enough wasted food to feed your old neighbourhood for a month. Ramesses sits at the high table, divine and oblivious, accepting worship like a tax collector accepts bribes, naturally and without gratitude. Prince Ramesses sulks at a lower table, unaware that your forged documents wait like patient spiders in various archives. Prince Pentar, Queen Tier's son, maintains careful neutrality, playing the overlooked heir with practiced perfection. Other nobles feast and scheme and gossip, the usual palace entertainment. The 8th hour arrives with bronze bells and anticipation thick as castor oil. Ramesses rises, declares the public portion of Opet complete, and retires for private communion with the gods. The court bows as he passes, each gesture a farewell they don't realize they're giving. You position yourself in the corridor outside his chambers, ostensibly organizing ceremonial scrolls, but actually counting heartbeats. Inside, a god prepares to eat mortality dressed as fruit. The mathematics of waiting prove harder than any calculation you've ever attempted. Kaimwazet the scribe appears like a fever dream made manifest. His hair stands wild, eyes red-rimmed from seeing ghosts in every shadow. He still clutches one of your forged poems, now crumpled beyond reading but apparently memorized. "Seize here," he hisses at a decorative statue. "Warns of poison, death in the feast, but no one listens. Mad Kahemwaset, seeing spirits, hearing voices." The irony is sharp enough to perform surgery. The one person who might raise legitimate alarm has been so thoroughly discredited that his accurate ravings sound like madness. You've created a prophet no one believes. Cassandra with a government pension. He staggers past, arguing with air, leaving you to wonder if madness might be contagious, or perhaps just practical, given current circumstances. Time crawls like a wounded soldier. Inside those chambers is Ramesses selecting his figs, biting through purple skin to white flesh laced with divine judgment. Or has he discovered something? A taste, a smell, an instinct that saves tyrants more often than justice should allow. Then, shouting. Not celebration, not prayer, but the raw sound of panic-given voice. Guards rush past, followed by servants, followed by the physician who meets your eyes for one eternal second before disappearing inside. You join the crowd because not joining would be suspicious. The scene inside is theological theatre at its finest. Ramesses writhes on his dining couch, foam decorating his lips like a rabid dog's makeup. His eyes bulge with the indignation of a god discovering mortality applies even to him. The physician kneels beside him, checking vitals with the futility of someone trying to bail out the Nile with a cup. "Divine One, what did you consume?" Ramses's hand rises for one stopped heartbeat moment, pointing directly at you. Recognition dawns in those dying eyes like the worst possible sunrise, but then the hand wavers, falls, points toward the window, where evening breeze stirs curtains like ghost fingers. "Spirits," he gasps. "The gods," and expires, just like that. 30 years of divine misrule ended by 3 figs and good planning. The mathematics of justice balanced in purple fruit and foam. The chaos erupts instantly. Guards seal the room, priests wail, nobles calculate succession while pretending to grieve. Queen Tier appears, performing widow's shock with award-worthy dedication. "My husband! Oh gods, my divine husband!" She collapses strategically, requiring assistance that positions her perfectly to whisper orders to key supporters. The physician rises, face grave as a robber's. The divine Pharaoh has been recalled by the gods. His pointing to the window, clearly his spirit departs for the west. But the foam... A guard begins. "Divine ecstasy," the physician interrupts smoothly. "I've seen it in religious visions. The gods called and our Pharaoh answered. We are blessed to witness such direct divine intervention." "Blessed." You swallow laughter that tastes like venom. Around you, The palace transforms from feast to funeral with the speed of professional mourners scenting employment. Prince Ramesses pushes through the crowd, face calculating succession odds. He'll find different mathematics soon enough, when your forged documents surface like corpses in the Nile. Prince Pentower maintains his mask of overlooked son, but his eyes find his mother's with a question. She answers with the slightest nod. You slip away as the death protocols begin. Wailing women, preparation orders, succession debates that will explode when convenient evidence emerges. Your part is done for now. The seeds planted, the poison delivered, the god properly killed. In your chambers, you find your sister awake, recovered enough to complain about the noise, living proof that some mathematics balance better than others. What's happening? She asks. It sounds like someone important died. Someone did, you agree, pouring beer with hands that don't shake because why should they? You've simply corrected a cosmic accounting error. The gods finally audited their books. She accepts this explanation because palace life has taught her that the gods have stranger accounting methods than even the tax collectors. You sit together, listening to Egypt convulse with change, and wonder if the afterlife has a complaints department. Probably not. They seem to run on the same management principles as the palace. Tomorrow, the forged documents will surface. Tomorrow, Prince Ramesses will be accused of patricide and treason. Tomorrow, Pentower will reluctantly accept the crown his mother has been polishing for decades. Tonight, you've killed a god with fruit and felt him recognize you in his final moments. The pointing finger that wavered, fell, failed to accuse. That image will visit your dreams with the persistence of an unpaid debt. But that's tomorrow's problem. Tonight's mathematics are complete. One tyrant subtracted, one conspiracy successful, one Egypt slightly less mismanaged. The gods remain silent on the matter. Their accounting department apparently closes early during festivals. The wonderful thing about killing a god is that everyone expects miracles, so when none occur, disappointment distracts from investigation. The palace transforms overnight into a factory of professional grief, producing wails and chest-beating with industrial efficiency. You'd be impressed if you weren't busy managing the aftermath of theocide. The physician performs beautifully, turning medical examination into theological theatre. He proclaims to assembled nobles that the foam evidences divine ecstasy, the convulsions were clearly spiritual transport, and the pointing toward the window? Obviously the pharaoh's car departing for the celestial realms. Who argues with a doctor about divine decomposition? No one's still breathing. The gods have recalled their son, he intones with the gravitas of someone who believes his own lies. We mortals can only give thanks for witnessing such direct divine intervention. Priests nod sagely, each adding their own theological flourishes. Within hours, the official story crystallizes. Ramesses III, blessed of Ra, answered heaven's call after consuming sacred figs that transported his divine essence directly to the afterlife. The figs themselves are declared holy relics, though you notice they're quickly destroyed to prevent unworthy souls from attempting premature divinity. You spend the night in archival acrobatics, destroying real documents and planting forged ones with the dedication of a gardener tending poison ivy. Prince Ramesses' correspondence with Libyan chiefs finds its way into official record boxes. Financial documents suggesting temple gold diverted to foreign mercenaries appear in accounting scrolls. Most damning, a half-burned confession materializes in the prince's personal effects, discovered by guards who've been subtly directed to search there. The confession is your masterwork, rambling enough to seem genuine, specific enough to damn, but partially destroyed as if the prince tried to burn evidence. The surviving portions speak of growing impatience, of gods who favor action over endless waiting, of figs that would solve dynastic problems with digestive finality. By dawn, you've created an alternate history so plausible that even you half believe it. Prince Ramesses, frustrated by his father's longevity, conspired with foreign powers and committed the ultimate sacrilege. Deicide, through decidedly non-divine fruit. Queen Tier orchestrates the discovery with the skill of a master puppeteer. Her shock appears genuine when guards report finding treasonous documents. Her collapse seems authentic when the confession is read aloud. Her tears could convince crocodiles to go vegetarian, as she wails about her stepson's betrayal, newly harnessed by husband dead and by his own son's hand. She clutches Prince Pentuer, who performs filial support while calculating his suddenly improved odds. What darkness has infected the royal blood? Prince Ramesses arrives at court expecting to plan a funeral and finds himself planning a defense. The guards present evidence with the inevitability of a mudslide. Document after document, witness after witness, carefully coached servants who saw him acting suspiciously near the kitchens, financial records showing mysterious payments to foreign agents. Lies, he roars with the indignation of the actually innocent. Forgeries, these aren't even my seal marks. Technically true. You worked hard to make them just different enough to suggest hurried conspiracy, while still passing casual inspection. The irony of an innocent man protesting frame job evidence you planted tastes better than the funeral beer. Then explain this. A priest produces the star witness, the damaged confession in handwriting close enough to damn. Your own words condemn you. Patricide. The prince reads with growing horror. You've included enough genuine details from his actual life to make the fiction sing. References to real gambling debts, actual frustrations expressed in cups, authentic resentments twisted into murderous intent. His face cycles through denial, confusion, and a dawning realization that truth matters less than perception in palace justice. I didn't write this, he whispers, but whispers don't carry in courts baying for blood. The trial proceeds with the speed of predetermined justice. 27 co-conspirators are identified, mostly Prince Ramesses' actual associates, guilty of nothing worse than proximity to power. But revolution requires scapegoats, and you've provided a whole herd. You're organizing witness statements in your familiar role as palace scribe when the messenger arrives from Thebes. Your position grants you proximity to power while maintaining appropriate invisibility. After all, who notices the servant taking notes while empires crumble? He's dust-covered and exhausted, having ridden through the night with the kind of urgency that suggests either war or, worse, theological complications. He demands immediate audience with whoever's currently claiming authority, which is everyone and no one in the succession chaos. Queen T receives him in the throne room, Pentuer at her side projecting reluctant air with Oscar-worthy subtlety. You lurk among the scribes, close enough to hear disaster approaching on horse-tired feet. Divine Mother, the messenger gasps after proper prostrations. The High Priest of Amun sends word. He has performed the opening of the mouth ceremony on our departed Pharaoh. Ice forms in your stomach despite the desert heat. The opening of the mouth, a ritual meant to restore speech to the dead for their afterlife journey. Usually symbolic, usually. And? T's voice could freeze the Nile. The dead spoke, Majesty, through the priest's vision. Ramses names his true killer. The court holds its breath like a pearl diver testing limits. You calculate distances to exits, weapons within reach, lies that might buy seconds. Beside you, another scribe fumbles his inkpot, staining papyrus like prophecy. Who, TA asks with the calm of someone juggling lit torches, who does my divine husband name? The messenger swallows. The vision was unclear, Majesty. The dead pharaoh pointed and spoke, but the name... The priests debate its meaning. Some heard Pentuer, others swear he said painter, still others claim betrayer, or simply wailed without words. Pentuer goes rigid, you stop breathing, the entire court teeters on the edge of theological crisis. Unclear, TA rises, every inch the offended queen. My husband's spirit crosses the veil to name his killer, and the priests of Amun cannot agree on pronunciation. What manner of divine incompetence is this? The high priest suggests, the messenger wilts under her glare, he suggests the vision requires clarification, since evidence already points to Prince Ramesses, but the divine message seems to implicate others. He proposes a divine trial. Let the gods confirm or deny what mortal evidence suggests. The accused, and any others the vision might indicate, should face heaven's judgment directly. Divine trials involve hot metal, poison ingestion, and other activities that end badly for conspirators. Your mind races through possibilities. Flee now and confirm guilt, stay and risk theological exposure, Or, "Of course," Queen Tiet declares with the confidence of someone holding aces and a knife. "We welcome divine justice. Prince Ramesses and his conspirators will face the god's own judgment, as will my son and I, to clear any shadow from the succession." Brilliant. By including themselves voluntarily, she transforms accusation into vindication, opportunity. Plus, the journey to Thebes takes days to arrange, accidents, bribes, or convenient revelations. "Prepare for departure," she commands. "Let none say we fear heaven's verdict." As the court disperses in gossipy clusters, you catch the physician's eye. He nods slightly. He'll handle his end. Documents can be adjusted, witnesses can develop memory problems, and even divine visions can be clarified with sufficient gold. But something cold settles in your chest. You've killed a god and framed a prince, but the dead apparently have their own agenda. Tomorrow you journey to Thebes for a trial by divinity, where your carefully constructed lies face whatever passes for truth in the afterlife. The enormity of it all, the murder, the frame job, the divine trial ahead, crashes over you like a Nile flood in the wrong season. You've balanced cosmic books with blood, but the audit continues, and the dead are apparently meticulous accountants. You find your chambers in darkness, exhaustion pulling at your bones like pyramid stones. Your sister sleeps peacefully on her mat, alive because you chose murder over morality. The mathematics still balance, even if the calculations grow more complex with each divine complication. You settle onto your own mat, mind churning with contingencies and theological escape routes. Tomorrow brings new impossibilities, but tonight you've earned your rest. After all, deicide is exhausting work, and even conspirators need sleep. "Good night," you whisper to the darkness. To the gods who remain stubbornly silent, to the ghost of a pharaoh who knew his killer's face. Tomorrow you'll face whatever justice the dead demand. Tonight, you close your eyes and let the exhaustion of playing God finally claim you. 6 months later, you oversee the execution of Prince Ramesses and 27 conspirators while standing beside Pharaoh Penduar's throne. The official records which you personally transcribed blame a vast Libyan plot. Sometimes, in the deep of night, you still dream of Ramesses' pointing finger and wonder if the gods keep their own records. But then you remember your sister's fever-bright eyes and return to your papyrus, writing history as it should have been. After all, someone has to. The truth has a terrible habit of dying with its witnesses, especially when you helped arrange their funerals. Thank you for listening, one last time. May your sleep be deep, your dreams quiet, and your mind at peace. Good night.